let's talk about float. Now, floating elements. The float property allows you to take an element in normal flow and place it as far to the left or right of the containing element as possible. Anything else that sits inside the containing element will flow around the element that is floated. When you use the float property, you should also use the width property to indicate how wide the floated element should be. If you do not, results can be inconsistent, but the box is likely to take up the full width of the containing element. In the example I'm going to show you, a block quote element is used to hold a quotation. Its containing element is the body. The block quote element is now floated to the right, and the paragraphs that follow the quote flow around the floated element. Now that's the example you see. You see the block quote here, and then the paragraph here, and this is the CSS for the block quote. It has been flowed to the right with a width of 275 pixels, font size 130%, and the other styling, margin 0 0, that means 0 to the top, 0 to the right, 10 to the bottom, and then 10 to the left. It has a padding, okay, and then a border top also 1 pixel, and she's solid, and the others. So let's check out float in our text editor and browser. Now I've pasted the code, the HTML code we saw in our slide. So you see a heading, a block quote, and a paragraph. So I'm going to the CSS area and then clear this, and then use the new settings for the block quote. Okay, so let me save it and see how it's going to appear. Now exactly how we wanted it, because look at the code, float to the right, so it means it has come to the right. Okay, width of 275, that's a width of 275. It has a font size of 130. If you check, the font size are bigger than this. Okay, this is 100%, so this is 130, slightly bigger. It has Georgia, it is italic, so everything we actually wanted is there. We have a border on the top. Okay, so that's the box, and there's a border at the top. The border also has a color. Okay, the border also has a color. Now let's go to our slides and then continue with the notes. Now let's talk about using float to place elements side by side. Using float, we just learned how to use float, but in this case we are floating to the right, but in this case we want to put it side by side. So a lot of layouts place boxes next to each other. The float property is commonly used to achieve this. When elements are floated, the height of the boxes can affect where the following element sits. In the example I'm going to show you, you'll see 6 paragraphs. Each of the 6 has a width and a float property set. The 4th paragraph does not go across left hand edge of the page as one might expect. Rather, it sits right under the 3rd paragraph. The reason for this is that the 4th paragraph has space to start under the 3rd paragraph, but it cannot go any further to the left because the 2nd paragraph is in the way. Setting the height of the paragraphs to be the same height as the tallest paragraph will solve this issue, but it is rarely suited to real-world designs where the amount of text in a paragraph or column may vary. It is more common to use the clear property to solve this issue. Now using float, okay, to place elements side by side. This is the code, okay, I want us to use to explain that. We are also going to see the entire body having a weight of 750, just like we've done, and a float, this floating to the left. This is just like the example we used earlier. Let's just move on. Clearing floats. The clear property allows you to say that no element within the same containing element should what? Touch the left or the right hand side of the box. It can take the following values: left, it can take right, it can take both, it can take none. When you use the left hand side of the box should not touch any other element appearing in the same containing element. If you use the right hand side of the box will not touch element appearing in the same containing element. Now if you use both, it simply means neither the left nor the right hand side of the box will touch element appearing in the same containing element. And if you use none element can touch either side. In the example, the fourth paragraph has a class called clear. The CSS rule for this class uses the clear property to indicate that nothing should touch the left hand side of it. The fourth paragraph is therefore moved further down the page so no other element touches its left hand side. Now this is an example. This is the one that has a class of clear, okay, and look at the code. It says clear left. So clear simply means it is going to move it, okay, it's going to move it completely so that none of the sides is going to what? Is going to touch it. Parent of floated elements. This is a problem and then we are going to explain using the solutions. Parent of floated elements. If a containing element only contains floated element, some browsers will treat it as a 0-pixel store. I'm going to show you the example. As you can see, the example HTML and CSS here. The 1-pixel border, okay, which is this 1-pixel border assigned to the containing element has collapsed, so the box looks like a 2-pixel line. Traditionally, developers got around this problem by adding an extra element after the last floated box. A CSS rule would be applied to this additional element, setting the clear property to have a value of both. But this meant that an extra element is supposed to be added to the HTML just to fix the height of the containing element. More recently, developers have opted for a purely CSS based solution because it means that there is no need to add any extra elements, okay, to the HTML page after the floated element. So there's no need to do the addition of what, increasing the height of the containing element and what have you. So a pure CSS solution has two CSS rules to the containing element. One, the overflow property is given a value auto, and then the width property is set to 100. Now overflow is what? Auto, and the width is what? Is 100. Let me show you this example to explain all what I've spoken about. So I just posted the HTML element as we have it within the div, and then also let me come to the CSS area and then paste the overflow auto to explain how to put it within the box. Okay, so I save that one as well. I come to my page and I refresh. Now this what happens when you have such a challenge. So border, we give the border 1 pixel and solid and give it a color and now overflow, you do it auto. So assuming the text were many, it will still not go outside the box, and give it a width of 100. That's the div. The next thing is creating multi-column layout with float. Creating multi-column layout with float. Many web pages use multi-columns in their design. This is achieved by using an element or the anchor element to represent each column. The following three CSS properties are used to position the columns next to each other: width, float, and margin. When you use the width, it sets the width of the columns, and the float positions the columns next to each other, whilst the margins create a gap between the columns. A two-column layout like the one I'm going to show you would need two elements: one for the main content of the page and one for the sidebar. Inside each of the elements there can be headings, paragraphs, images, and even other elements. Now, this is how to create multi-column layout with float. I'm going to show you this in our text editor and on our browser. Let's go quickly to our text editor. Now, in the HTML, I have two columns. So this has column 1 of 2 and column 2 of 2. Let me save this and go to the CSS and see column 1 of 2. We say it should float to the left with a width of 620 and a margin of 10 pixels. So we told you the margin is to put gaps between each of the boxes or each of the columns. And this also has a margin of 10 with a width of 300 and a float also to the left. So let's also save this and then refresh our browser. Okay, so this is what is happening. Let me maximize my page. So this is the first div and then second div. Okay, this is creating columns, 2 columns table. Let me try with 3 columns. Now the 2 columns will be side by side. Okay, they will float side by side. Let me try and create a 3 column using this code. Now I have 3 columns, 3 different divs added. So they are here. The first one has a class of column 1 of 3, the second one has column 2 of 3, and the third one has column 3 of 3. We have a class of 2 of 2 as well. So let me try, and then let me just take the 2 of 2 out. This is coming from our previous example, and then save it. Come to my CSS and write a rule to work for column 1 of 2, 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and 3 of 3 by using comma and applying the same rule to all of them. I save this one as well. So I want 3 columns to appear side by side. Okay, all should appear side by side. Now I'm seeing only 2 appearing side by side. This is 1 column, another column. Let me try and now add the 2 of 2. Add 2 of 2 here. Let me just include a 2 of 2, which are the, let me save it and let me refresh the page again. Now I can see. So I can see 3 columns, 1 column here, 1 column there, 1 column there. It's unfortunate that I don't have a lot of text in my brackets, in my paragraphs, so you don't actually see it, but you can actually see this is 1 column, the middle column, and then the end column. So we were creating 3 columns. The first one was 2 columns.